Yo, what up, Mrs. Z Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Rafa? Welcome to another episode of The Dark Device, where today we're doing a standard deck profile for our beloved Queen Gredora. Now, obviously, the last time I did a standard deck profile, it was basically for using cards that came out in that particular set only. Well, this for right now, this is going to be the actual standard build that we're going to be having for this card. I was supposed to come out with this maybe like a couple of weeks ago, but there's a particular card that came out in set 12 that I had to wait for. Now that I finally got it, I can finally do this deck profile. Again, looking at how the new cards and clan selection is coming out, this deck might actually change dramatically. But for now, let's get this started with this particular build. Um, just not to waste any more time. So, of course, for our grade zeros, we're running our little starter right here. It can be any starter. For our trigger lineup, we are running three draws. One of the draws being Paralyzed Madonna. We are running 9 criticals. Let's see, for the ninth one being the Sentinel crit, and then obviously we're running 4 heal triggers because they're heals. We're obviously going to be doing that. So the reason why we're running all these mismatched Sentinels, of course we're obviously going to be running like some of the grade 1 Sentinels as well. The reason why I'm running mismatched Sentinels is because we can search them out. But at the same time, let's be real, we don't want to be searching out for stuff in our trigger lineup. So that's the reason why this exists. And then obviously this is just to have a lot more power because it's a critical. And the 3k shield isn't too bad. But yeah, seeing that we can search out for Sentinels in our in our deck, we can actually, make good use to it. So that's why we're running like at least one of the draw trigger PGs. We're running at least one of this, and then we're running 2 of the regular ones. That's basically how we're going to be doing it. I know it's weird, it looks awkward as hell, but it's actually pretty worth it. At the end of the day, seeing that you can just like search for everything out. So that's basically how we're going to be doing the trigger lineup right then and there. Obviously, let's go to the grade 1s. So because I mentioned it earlier, we're going to be running 2 PGs. This is the one that if you put on your Vanguard circle, you draw a card and discard a card. This is pretty interesting because we're running a very low count of grade 2s, and sometimes we're not always going to get those grade 2s in hand. So having a way to, filter out the deck more with like consistent drawing is actually going to be the reason why we're going to be running this card in general. Next up, we have 2 Dorcases. Basically, it's the grade 3 searcher, and its extra ability, it gains 5k as long as all your units on your opponent's side of the field are at rest, which is going to be the case 98.9% of the time. There's rarely going to be a case when your opponent has rear guards and they're all standing, or at least one of them is standing. So yeah, that's a particular thing. But anyway, we're only running this at 2 because obviously we have like a lot of ways to search out for the deck. We got cradle markers, we got other grade 3 searchers that we're running in the deck in general. So we don't need to run like a full play set of grade 3 searchers just like most decks in the game does, because we make a colony, we special like that. Fuck with us. But anyway, overall, usually I kind of like don't really like running Dorcas in general because, like, again, we have other grade 3 searchers in the deck, including a cradle marker. But we are at a time where we do need to push for more attack, and that's the only reason why we're running Dorcas is because we also need to get the right grade 3 in hand too. It's like you don't ride into anything but Gredora. So sometimes we're gonna get that grade 3 in hand, but it's not gonna be Gredora, and that's where a little Dorcas comes in. just for a little bit more of that push to get the right grade 3 that we need in the hand. So that's the only reason why I'm running Dorcas. Next up, we're running 3 small captain butterfly officer. Basically, when she's placed, you rest her, you choose one of your rear guards, it gets plus 10, and at the end of the turn, you put it into the soul and you countercharge 1. What makes this card interesting, in my honest opinion, is that it acts as both a counter charger and a soul charger all in one. But the reason why we're not running out of full playset is obviously because she's 6K. Like, let's be real, this is like the worst grade 1 target that you want to ride into. This is literally, when it comes to riding to grade 1s, worst case scenario because it's 6K. Especially if it's your turn 1 and your opponent is going to be like the first one on the offensive. They can definitely just start rushing you in just because you're at a 6K Vanguard. Especially if you had to like G assist and you felt the G assist as well. Your opponent's at grade 2, they just gonna be completely welling on your ass. Like that's basically just gonna be a thing in general. Next up we're running 3 clear breezes. Breeze of Jesus. Not really though, but like you know what I mean. But anyway, we're playing 3 clear breezes. So when placed, you discard a card from hand, you draw a card. If that card was a grade 3, you get to put a cradle marker on one of your opponent's rear guards. So obviously this is like the main grade 1 ride target you want to go into is either her or Dorcas. And basically you could use it on the Vanguard and rear guard circle. You get to draw. And this is basically just a way to filter out like some of your hand, filter out some of the grade 3s, because sometimes you'll get that Morikawa curse where you have nothing but grade 3s in hand. And like I said, we're running a low count of grade 2s, so obviously it's going to be something for it's going to be something to get those grade 2s out a lot faster into your hand without having you to force a G assist. So that's a thing. Also, most of the time when you're generating cradle markers, it always has some type of cost to it. Like Gredora has a cost, Counterblast one cost, what's his face? Dark Face has a counterblast cost. Even though it doesn't cost a counterblast to make a marker, it does cost them like a discard in order for you to make that marker as well. But like I said, it's just an easier way to not pay counterblast one, just to put cradle marker things in your thing. So you can basically use that counterblast for something else instead of using it for Gredora. That's basically it. Last for our grade 1 lineup, we're running Disturbance Mutant Mesmeroro. I think that's how you say it. Morsi Roro. Uh, Morsi Rojo is kind of sort of a dick. So basically, you retire her and you retire one of your opponent's rear guards with the cradle marker on it. You search out your deck for a unit with the same card with the same grade as the card that was retired, and you put it to your field. Now, you also got to remember that because you're killing something with a cradle marker in it, you also get to search out for something with the same grade as that card, and you get to add it to your hand. Um, Mainly one of the more interesting things to do is, let's say your opponent has a grade 1 and you already have your front row set up. Morsi Roro, no, put a cradle marker on that thing. Morsi Roro, use her ability to retire it. Call out Butterfly Officer. In Butterfly Officer, we use a skill to get a plus 10, and then obviously you get to search out for any of these cards as well. Maybe if you want to set up for like the next turn, because this is only a once per turn. It's a hard once per turn. So if you want to set up for the next turn, you could search out for the second one if there is a second one in there, or search out for like maybe a protect marker. I mean, not a protect marker, a PG. What am I saying? A PG, breathing clear breeze and stuff like that. Just search out for anything, or even another butterfly officer. To be honest, that would be another interesting thing to search out for. Obviously, there's grade 2 targets and some decent grade 3 targets as well. So, Get creative with it, bro. Get creative with it because there's a lot of things you can do with this card. Sadly, it's just a hard once per turn, so you can't necessarily like abuse it. Like I know it would have been busted if you're able to abuse it though, but it'll still be a funny thought to think about. Next up is the grade two lineup. We are running one Nelfinthia. I know I'm I know I'm butchering that name, but anyway, Vanguard Rearguard Circle, um, it gains plus 6k continuously, and its second ability is when it gets retired by one of your card's abilities, more likely Gredora, you get the Soul Blast one and put a Cradle Marker on your opponent's rear guard. So it's pretty interesting. It's just there for a beat stick, which is the reason why we're only running one. Because let's be real, like the grade 2 lineup isn't going to be your necessary focus. It's going to always be your grade 3 lineup. Um, and this card is good, but like I said, there's going to be, well, not like I said, but obviously there's going to be times your opponent isn't really going to have any rear guards. So this card becomes almost completely useless at that particular time, which is the reason why we're only running that one. We're running that one so we can just, poke your opponent for one of our first attacks just in case, just to force them to like either take a damage or force them to guard from somewhere or even intercept if that's even possible. So yeah, this card is there just for that. It's also to display more cradle markers, but let's be real, you're rarely ever gonna use her second skill. You're gonna be able to retire her, but sometimes there's just going to be a time where your opponent has nothing but cradle markers on the field and you just rather just save that Soul Blast or something else. Next up, we have the original Grade 3 Searcher for Machine Mantis. When he's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you counterblast one. Look at the top six, search out for a Grade 3 card and add it to your hand, and then core shuffle, and then he gets plus 6k. So he's going to be a 15k beat stick after using his skill, but let's be real, at the end of the turn, he just becomes a 9k vanilla beat stick. That's basically it. And then we have, in my honest opinion, pretty much the best grade 2 Make Colony has to offer, Sticky Bolus. So when she's placed, you counterblast one, look at the top six, and you can call up to two, well, not call, but you can search for up to two cards with dark faces. They have to be different names and add them to the hand. Her second ability is when she attacks, you Soul Blast one and she gains 6k for each card with the Cradle Marker mechanic and is with the Cradle Marker mechanic on it. And if it's 20k or higher, this is regardless, as long as she's 20k or higher, you get to draw a card. So even if your opponent doesn't have any Cradle Markers, you attack with her and she's 20k or over, then obviously you get to draw a card because you also met that condition right then and there. So yeah, she's a very good beat stick. Yes, it does cost Soul Blast, which is also another reason why she's at one. But she's pretty much your only like Soul Blast guzzler outside of another card that I have in this deck. So you're not really gonna be fighting for Soul Blast like that, which is actually pretty interesting in my honest opinion. But like I said, she's very good, very talented. Even if you're not playing Gredora, I can arguably say you can play this in Gunning-Colio and still kind of get away with it just because of the 20k or higher thing. Just because you're able to draw a card if she's 20k or higher, I feel like you can kind of sort of get away with this in Gunning-Colio. But that's just me. This card's going to be pretty amazing, so yeah. That's basically the grade 2 lineup. That's the reason why I said we're running like all of those grade 1s to search out for that grade 2 because we're only running 9 grade 2s. Usually it's 8 because I normally don't like using this card, but like after testing it out, it's okay. Like if you don't really want to play the card, don't play it though, but and keep with the 8 grade 2s because these are pretty essential. But like I said, I'm only doing that just so you don't have to really depend solely on these particular cards to search out, your grade 2. Last but not least is the grade 3s. We obviously have the Queen Gredora. So she counterblasts one, shoots it to your opponent's rear guards, and gives them cradle markers, or rear guards without cradle markers on them and gives them cradle markers. Her second ability is when she attacks, you retire one of your rear guards, search out your deck for a grade 3, put it to the field, and that grade 3 in her gets plus 10k. So she becomes a 22k beat stick, the other grade 3 becomes a 22k beat stick, and whatever other abilities said grade 3 has. And this is one of the major reasons why Mega Colony could attack for like a maximum of 5, because you attack with both of your rear guards, you attack with her, then you attack with another unit, and you'll either get 4 or 5 attacks from this. And let's be real, doing more than 3 attacks is very powerful in this format, very important. And it also makes it to where you're forced to not run something a little under 4 attacks. Like, let's be real, 3 attacks doesn't necessarily work in this format no more, and this is the perfect deck to do so if you want to run Make It Colony, but you want something that can multi-attack. Gredora is definitely the way to go. Also, her first ability is pretty good because she does 2 cradle markers instead of like the usual one, like every other card in this deck does. So that's just me. And then the thing that gives us our 5th attack will be Super Toxic Mutant Hell Demise. Basically, when he's placed on the rear guard circle, yeah, when he's placed on the rear guard circle, you choose one of your units, restand it, choose one of your opponent's units, and rest it. You already know the whole do as much as possible. But then his second ability is an interesting one. Basically, when your opponent tries to to stand everything up during their stand phase, anything that's in the same column as his unit cannot restand. So it not only works as a restanding for your thing, but it also works as screwing up one of your opponent's columns in the process. Now, obviously, going against an XL deck, if they're the type of XL deck that can just stay on the XL markers, obviously this is going to be completely ignored. But at the same time, this is still kind of worth the use. Basically, one of the major reasons why like people started trying to pick up Mickey Colony in the first place is because of this. This used to be ran at a full playset, but there is a card in here that I'll give an exact reason why we're not running at a full playset. Next up, we have 2 Intimidate Mutant Dark Faces. So when he's placed on the Vanguard or Rearguard circle, you discard a card and you put a Cradle marker on your opponent's rearguard that doesn't have a Cradle marker on it. But his second ability is when he attacks, you counterblast one. You choose one of your opponent's rearguards with the Cradle marker on it. You retire it, and then at the same time, you're able to gain 5k for each of that card's grade. So if it was a grade 3, 15k, grade 4, 20k, grade 2, 10k, grade 1, 5k, and then obviously nothing for grade 0. So this is a pretty interesting card in general. The only reason why nobody really runs them outside of like maybe 2 or 3 is due to the simple fact that if your opponent doesn't have any cards with the cradle marker on it, he's completely useless almost. So he's usually there just for utility purposes and also for Gredora's skill and something to actually call out as well. Um, he's not necessarily a finisher per se, so I can't necessarily say that like he's one of the best cards to play in the deck. But outside of that, um the whole retiring with the cradle marker thing is pretty good, and he has a pretty good ability. We just need something that can, force your opponent to call stuff during, either your turn or a way to use cradle markers during their turn. And I don't think we'll ever get that, but it is something that I feel like that if we just have that one thing solved, this whole deck will run 10 times better than it's already running right now. Next up, we have the possible finisher, Unravel Blade Rogue Cyclomatooth. So he has an interesting ability. So on Vanguard Rigard Circle, you can counterblast one and soul blast one when he attacks. Your opponent puts a top card of their deck into the drop zone, and if it's a grade one or greater, he gets a plus critical. But regardless if it's a grade one or a grade zero, grade one or higher or a zero, he still gets a 10k boot, a 10k boost from it. So he becomes a 22k. If you call him out with Gredora, he becomes 32k, which is actually pretty good in its own right. And then if he's on the Vanguard Circle and you ride on top of him, he has a break ride ability where your opponent is forced to discard a card, and if that card has is a grade one or greater, you get 5k depending on how much of that card's grade it is. So obviously there's going to be a lot of people who's going to discard a grade zero, so you don't get a plus, 5k or whatever on your Vanguard. But at the same time, if they're discarding a grade zero, that basically means that they're discarding its shield, so it definitely works in your favor. Last but not least, we're running two aspirations of limitless power. This is the recent order card that came out in set 12, and the reason why it took so long for me to do this list. So you put a normal unit from your drop zone into the bottom of your deck, and if that unit was a grade 3 or greater, you draw a card. So basically this is the reason why we're not running a Hildemise at a full playset anymore, because we now have a way to recover them. We now have a way to recover Cyclomatooth, we have a way to recover any of our grade 3s, or our grade 1s like Morsi Roro, or even one of our grade 2s if we really want to, or in general we have a way to, oh yeah, also our PG as well. But anyway, we basically have a way to recover a lot of our normal units. There is going to be another card, because currently I'm recording this like the day before the reveal of Venom Stinger. So at this particular time, we only got the grade one, which was the Moth, that allows us to put a normal unit to the bottom of the deck. We have that, and we have this to give us graveyard recurrence and to give us some recovery. So that's actually pretty interesting. And this is the reason why we're running a little bit more stuff on the low. Originally, these two, it was like one more Cyclomatooth and like one more Hildemise. It was just basically that it was like I was originally running two Cyclomatooth and four Hildemise, but because this card came out and it helps make economy a lot, instead it's gonna be three Hildemise, one Cyclomatooth, and two of this particular card in general. But for now, that is my whole um deck list for Gredora. If you like videos like this, like, comment, subscribe. I have a lot more videos for the help for the channel, for Dark Device in general. Stay tuned. I would definitely come up with an updated deck list once I figure out like what Venom Sting does. But for now, my name is Zoo Nation, aka Savage Armor Jones Giraffe, signing out.